How long are we going to be on for?
This one probably as long as an hour, but it's all dependent
Okay.
on how long the conversation we have here.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. This is Greg Suddy on Soccer, and I am here with Michael King, 22-year veteran of the indoor game. I really appreciate you joining me today, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, let me do a quick ad spot, and we'll get started here. Greg Suddy on Soccer is sponsored by Auden Technologies. Auden Technologies takes care of all your needs from security cameras and alarm systems all the way to servers and networks. Auden Technologies primarily operates out of the Midwest and the Northeast. They have contacts online. Their website is infillc.com. And also you can contact them on email at jauden, Jauden, jauden @infillc.com. I want to thank very much for Auden Technologies and their sponsorship for Study on Soccer. Michael King. So let's first start a little bit about your, growing up. You obviously you're English. You grew up in England. When did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States in 1982 on a full ride scholarship to play soccer on the East Coast at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I was meant to come the year before, the year I graduated high school in England, but they didn't have the scholarship available, and so they said if you wait a year, you could come. And during that year, I really tried to get into the pro game in England and played as high an amateur level as I could for a year and worked on the side, and things didn't pan out. And so I took the spot and came over and did my 4 years on the East Coast. The goal was not necessarily to do the 4 years. It was try to get in the NASL. And
Gotcha.
I thought I had a chance my rookie year, my freshman year, because I led the nation in scoring. I had 31 goals in 21 games and couldn't get a sniff, couldn't get drafted. So I ended up doing the 4 years. But in that time, 85, the league folded. And come 86, the only option was the MISL, the indoor game.
Right. I'm a little surprised. There was a lot of English players and coaches in the NASL. I would have expected them to take notice of Michael King as a young man coming over here.
Well, the funny thing was Fairleigh Dickinson University is just up the road from the Meadowlands. And so we did have interaction with the Cosmos. And so I knew some of the guys just from playing with them and everything. Became really good friends. An old teammate of mine, Richard Chinapoo, he went to school in New Jersey, in Long Island. So I knew a few of the guys. Paul Kitson, I'd met him. But the league, they had a stacked team, so it probably wouldn't have been the Cosmos. So it turned out okay. I found a place in Cleveland when they drafted me, and to play 22 years, the sport that you love and get paid to do it, I think it worked out okay.
No kidding. And you had a bit of a decent go at it too. Not just to be playing as long as you did, but made a huge impact in the sport as well. You started in Cleveland, And you were there for a couple of years. What was with the Cleveland Force? What did you think of the indoor game at that point?
Well, we had
How did
we had been exposed. Well, I say that I've been exposed a little bit to indoor soccer, playing in around New York City. There was various tournaments indoor, some in gymnasiums, some in a bigger court. There was a tournament every year in upstate New York at Lake Placid, where the ice hockey arena was up
Right.
there, and they had the carpet with the boards. So, and then my senior year, Cleveland Force held a senior bowl for indoor soccer, and they had a number of players that came from different colleges. And right after that game, they had the draft. In fact, the day I was meant to graduate and get my gown, I actually got drafted. The draft took place in Cleveland, and that year there was a number of quality players that got drafted in '86. And I was fortunate enough to get drafted, being a foreigner, so that kind of held against me. So I didn't go as high as what I thought should have got drafted. I ended up getting drafted number 17 or 19 by Cleveland. But still, I mean, like I said, it all worked out. But yeah, I was thankful for Cleveland for taking me, and you know what, they were a good franchise.
Yes, absolutely, they were, and they had some successes on the field while you were there.
Yeah, we were fortunate to make the playoffs, and we lost to San Diego the second year, but they had lost 4 times in the semifinal prior to me coming there, and they were really making an effort to break through. You know, why weren't they able to get through the semifinal? Because obviously they had to play the likes of Baltimore Blast and Minnesota Strikers, but that year they were able to make it through, and I think the occasion got a little bit the better of us, and your Sockers swept us 4-0. So obviously we didn't figure out how to win it completely, and we didn't win it. Cleveland didn't win it for a number of years after that. It wasn't until the dynamic duo got together, Marinero and Carrick, and they were able to put a run together and win a championship for Cleveland. So.
And that was in the NPSL, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Right. You moved from there to the Dallas Sidekicks. You played for the Dallas Sidekicks for a season. What was that like?
It was hotter than Cleveland, I can tell you that. It was fun. Yeah. The sad thing about that was Dallas knocked us out of the playoffs the year they won their first title. And so Joe Papalea was the goalie in Dallas, and we always used to hear a lot about how Dallas Sidekicks beat, Tacoma, because Joe was with Tacoma and I was with Cleveland. But it was fun. Gordon Jager was a great guy to play for, and, I got to meet and play against, with Tattoo. So Kevin Smith and David Stride and all those, Victor Moreland, old guys synonymous to the Dallas Sidekicks. So it was a good experience. But the deal was, if Cleveland came back into the league, our rights would go back to Cleveland, and that's what happened. Kai Huskovy put an ownership group together, and they bought it. They were able to bring it back to Cleveland, and they bought back a number of the old Force players: Bernie James, Mike Sweeney, obviously Kai Huskovy, Benny Dargle. So all those guys' rights went back to Cleveland, and so we at least started off with a pretty good foundation of players, and then we sprinkled it with some new guys, and it took us a couple of years, but we were able to put a pretty good product on the field. The fans didn't.
So I was going to ask. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you. What was it that got you back to Cleveland? And it was the ownership group put together by Kai Huskovy to start the Cleveland Crunch.
Yeah. The deal they had made, that any of those players that went off and played for a year, they were just 1-year contracts.
Interesting.
And so the rights went back to the new team in Cleveland. So the majority of the players went back there. Or had the chance to go back there. So, there was a couple of guys that didn't, but I think that maybe because they were in the last year of their contract. I don't know, but
I gotcha.
um,
Well,
yeah,
and that team as well had some success. That you guys reached the finals with the Cleveland Crunch as well.
yeah, no, it was the first year we kind of took it on the chin, and but then after that, yeah, they turned it around on the field, um, and we ended up having a nice run, and then the league. There was the merger of the two leagues, and there was an issue with number of green card players, which it was a political thing, and I ended up moving on from Cleveland after 3 years with the Crunch, and went to Baltimore, in fact, for 1 year, and then
Right.
yeah, played there for a year, and then I actually had an ACL injury, and so I left Baltimore, and then during that off season, I was approached by Victor Nogueira, who was in Milwaukee then, and he said, "Mike, come to Milwaukee." He says, "I think we need a goal scorer badly," and so Victor and I played together and lived together, and I trusted him, and he says, we can do some good in Milwaukee. He says, "I'll save them, you score them." And
Nice.
that's how it turned out. And
That's nice.
15 years later, I played 10 years there with Victor, and then obviously Victor moved back to San Diego and played there and was successful for a few years. And I carried on in Milwaukee and made Milwaukee home.
Right. So and you're still living there. You were there for 15 years, and you're in Milwaukee today, aren't you?
Yep. It's home. Raised a family here, and obviously continue playing and coaching and working here. So
Well, let's talk a little bit about those years in Milwaukee. 15 seasons in Milwaukee. Was Keith Tozier the coach when you came online and started playing for them?
yeah, he had been here for a season, and I think they were 500 their first season, or just below 500. Obviously, he inherited some players, and then he started to bring in some of his players that he wanted to get in. And like I said, he approached me via Victor, and I came on board, and we made the playoffs the first year. And in fact, every year I played here, we were in the playoffs. So yeah, things worked out, and Keith did a great job in developing the game, not just on the field but off the field in Milwaukee, and the players did a big part of establishing a winning culture, and yeah, we
Right.
had a lot of success.
Yeah, culture is huge. And it sort of starts at the coach, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also, well, then you got to get the players. A lot of people say, players win games, coaches lose games, but we did a lot. We did a lot of winning, and we had good guys on the bench, coaches, assistant coaches. We did some things that were unique. Keith introduced futsal into the game, into training. We did gym work that was a big part of it. So yeah, and you look at what the game looks like now. It's a little different, but some things have stayed the same. The boards, the glass has moved a little bit. So a lot of things he was influential in establishing, and has given the game the enjoyment that hopefully, that's why the fans come and watch it.
Well, when you first started playing indoors professionally, that was right after the North American Soccer League had folded. And I mean, you mentioned the Strikers, the Sockers, the Sting, the Earthquake. Those were some teams that made the jump over to the MISL. You played that whole period of your career was during that period of time when there was no other professional soccer in North America. What was it like playing with all of those players that would otherwise have been playing outdoors?
It was humbling. Not all of them were household names for me, coming from England and the outdoor. I didn't know some of those, but then when you took the time to look at at their accomplishments, you know, there were some pretty high profile international players that had chose to relocate and, you know, and come to America and do their part in bringing the game of outdoor soccer to North America. You know, they call us pioneers, kind of thing, and to see how they adapted their games. Like I tell my kids when I coach, hey, the ball doesn't know that there's boards around. It's just soccer. Just go out there and play, kind of thing. And that's what those guys did. And they were tremendous technical players. And you adapt. It's like you adapt with new teammates every year. You adapt to the surroundings. You change cities. You know, so if you're a good player, you can adapt. And some players embraced it. Some players just wanted to. This was just a stepping stone to when the outdoor would start up again. But the trouble was that wasn't for 9 years for me. You know, right. And so for 9 years, there was a number of players that, had there been an outdoor league, they would have been playing in the outdoor league. But when right. you go from 23 years old to 31 years old,
right.
and then you get an invite to go to an MLS combine, which a number of us did, you know, were you really going to get picked up, and were you going to really locate? So there wasn't that many that made the jump back to the outdoor game. There was a few, right. but not that many. Mostly probably because of economic reasons. You know, it just wasn't advantageous for us to do it. Some of the younger guys, they did it, but you know, I mean, it was funny. If you talk to anyone that went to that combine, you talk to the coaches that were coaching at that combine, there was the best players were the guys that came from indoor.
Right.
When they had that combine, the guys that were on the coaches are on the bench, the Ron Newmans, that were out on the sideline, the Alan Hintons, they knew that the better guys were the guys that were showing up from the indoor game, and we put on a display. I believe we beat Bruce Arena's Olympic team 4-1, and that was just indoor guys playing outdoor. Yeah. There's more stories connected with that I can tell you about, but yeah, you know, so that kind of told you, you know, the caliber of players that were out there. You don't ever forget how to play outdoor soccer, you know.
Right.
So it was definitely it was a great opportunity, but at the same time, you know, there was a number of us said, hey, if this thing had happened 5 years ago, there probably would have been a number of guys that would have probably jumped ship. But like I said, when you're in your early 30s, you know, you look around Europe, there's not a lot of outdoor players in their early 30s playing. Right. It's a young man's sport now, you know. There's a few, but not many.
Well, and the World Cup team, the United States World Cup team, when the World Cup was here in the United States, that team was made up of a bunch of indoor players.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, you know, Desmond Armstrong, John Stolmar were my teammates. Clavijo played. There was Brian Bliss, Caligieri, bunch of guys on that team had spent time indoor, you know. So yeah, and those guys, some of those guys have been recognized, and rightly so. But there's still a handful of guys out there that need to be recognized by US Soccer for the importance of what they did in the sport of soccer, whether it's indoor, outdoor, beach, futsal, I don't care. They need to, those players need to be recognized and held high, because if it wasn't for us guys or those guys that played, you know, it would have even been a harder sell for the MLS. You know, we kept soccer going during those years.
Yeah, at the Hall of Fame in Dallas, there's a few indoor players that have been inducted into the National Hall of Fame. I'm thinking comes to mind Fernando Clavijo and Steve Jungle was just inducted.
Yeah. But there should be more. You know, whether I get in it, that's neither here nor there. But there's definitely a handful of players that should be recognised and in the conversation. And depending on what their guidelines is of how you get in or not get in, if it just goes on outdoor, then obviously some of those guys won't get in or even be considered. But for ambassadors for the game of soccer,
absolutely,
you know, that's where I think that these guys need to be recognised, whether it's coaches as well. You know,
I was just going to say that because I know that Ron Newman was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know
how long was Kenny Cooper doing indoor? How long's Keith Tozer been doing indoor? You know, in the game of soccer. You know, like I said, it's a round ball and you put it in a goal. Whether there's boards around it, whether there's sand, it's soccer.
Yeah, you know? That's right.
Try to convince me otherwise, or give me an argument otherwise, and we can sit down and have a discussion about it. You know, so
absolutely, no, that's absolutely spot on. So you've found yourself with 4 championships in your career. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to lead the four championships in Milwaukee. Prior to me coming here, they hadn't won one. There hadn't been too many championships of any kind in Milwaukee. Yeah, obviously Green Bay Packers have won a lot, but the Brewers have never won one. The Bucks just recently won one, but prior to that, they hadn't won one since '74. The ice hockey team I think has won one Calder Cup. I think that's what it's called. But outside of that, no, we put Milwaukee on the map for a few years, and yeah, and it was a good time. But like I said, I won 4, but I also played in 9, so I lost 5 as well. So.
Wow.
So I'm still on the wrong side. I'm still on the wrong side of 500, and I know some of you know, when I see the guys in San Diego with 10 rings on their fingers, you know, it's like, well, you know, that's great, you know. But just being a part of those championships is, you know, it's very rewarding. But you know, it makes you enjoy the times when you do win. But it also humbles you that there are, you know, 2 sides to a championship, you know. And it makes you work harder, or gives you impetus to work harder for the following year.
I don't know why, but my memory goes back to the four consecutive Super Bowls that the Buffalo Bills lost in a row, 4 times in a row, and never did get a win.
Sure.
You know, and that's a difficult. That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, so. I mean, at least you do have those 4. A lot of people don't. I mean, that you 22 years and 4 championships, 9 finalists. That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, we lost 3 in a row in Milwaukee. You know, so I mean, if it had gone the other way, we would have had a even longer dynasty for a while. So you know, I mean, yeah, we were very successful. So yeah, it's. But at the end of the day, people only remember the winners. So,
well, I know, isn't that true? That is true. So you contacted me a few days ago, and the topic of conversation was the upcoming alumni game in Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Wave. I'm obviously assuming that you're going to be part of that. Do you have any idea who might else show up?
Well, there's quite a few Wave guys that live in the community, and obviously we've got some guys that are you know, coaching for them right now. Giuliano obviously played for us, and Tenzin Rampa. Art Kramer does the play-by-play. He played in the league and obviously coached in the league. Yeah, there's quite a few guys, and every year the Wave that does offer an opportunity to get the guys together, whether it's just in a social aspect, or sometimes they often see if there's enough old cronies that want to run out there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes at halftime, you know, that may happen. But yeah, I mean, any opportunity, you know, that I can help out in promoting and try to get some of the guys come in and just show the new fan base that, you know, there's 40 years of history in the indoor game in Milwaukee, and these guys, you know, they need to be recognized and appreciated. And yeah, I'm just glad that the Wave is gonna give us an opportunity for that coming up in the next home game.
Well, my understanding is that the Milwaukee Wave, while not the oldest existing brand, they are the oldest existing continuous team. That the legal entity that is the Milwaukee Wave has the longest run of any of the teams that are currently playing indoors.
Yeah, well, you know, everyone wants to be number one, you know, so guys are gonna jostle over those, you know, splitting hairs kind of thing, you know. And I'm good friends with Ed Hale in Baltimore, you know, and I know he's you know, he's all gung ho about that, you know. So everyone wants to be number one and the best and everything, and obviously San Diego with the number of championships and stuff. So that's all good fun and competition. You know, the fact that there's a league that we can, you know, have these internal little competitions and who's better, who's longer, and this and that. That's great. The fact that, you know, there has been longevity, it just shows the commitment from ownerships and cities and everyone involved in these organizations. But at the end of the day, you have to remember you're only as weak as the weakest franchise. So my hope is that, you know, our weaker franchises become stronger. And so, you know,
Exactly.
we won't be looking at, you know, the number of teams that have folded. You know, if that conversation does come up, it's going to be, hey, we haven't had a team fold in the last 20 years. That would be the ultimate, you know, just like we don't want to see any franchises up and move. We need teams to have longevity. And right now we can say that we're one of the longest running organizations in professional soccer, whether it's indoor and outdoor. And obviously MLS is doing a lot of good. So hopefully, you know, those little inter-club, inter-league, you know, banters can continue. So long as the sport's in a healthy place, you know, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, throughout your career, you played during some years when I use the term the alphabet soup indoor soccer leagues throughout the United States over the years, and you were part of and playing during when some of those leagues folded. I mean, the original MISL, I guess the NPSL became the MISL2, or I may not be right about that, but there was the AISA. There has been so many different leagues. It's hopeful that, I mean, the MASL is now, you know, it's been around since, what was it, 2014? So it's almost 10 years old as a league. So, you know, hopefully it keeps going. And like you say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I mean, before we came online, we were talking a little bit about the fan bases, and some of the teams in the league are bringing in good fans, a good amount of fans. Others not so much.
Yeah, we talk about, you know, good numbers. Well, I guess it depends on what numbers, you know, people are looking at or want to have involved in. You know, when people say, well, what was it like when you first started playing? I was like, well, Cleveland averaged 12, 13,000 average for 26 home games. So, I mean, you know, and when I first came to Milwaukee, we averaged 8 or 9,000 at the old Bradley Center, you know, and now the Wave play in a different arena, a smaller arena, you know. On the field, you want to win games and you set your targets and everything. Just like off the field, I'd like to think front offices set their target. Until you sell out, you could always do a better job, you know. And so that should be the motivation that, supply and demand kind of thing, just like from a player standpoint, number of games. I tell people that, hey, we played 52 regular season games my rookie year, and then you had best of 5, best of 7, best of 7 playoffs, and now we have these
Right.
one game playoff or 2 games and a mini game, so
Right.
there's variations on things, but at the end of the day, you want to try to maximize your opportunities, both from the playing side and from the front office business side. Obviously now we've got the interweb. You can put this across the world. Well, for the longest time,
Right.
you couldn't even get it from Chicago to Milwaukee on the radio or something, or on TV. So times have changed, dynamics have changed, and what is expected or what is okay, for numbers of fans and stuff. I mean, it's ultimately it comes down to each franchise and ownership groups of what is acceptable and can maintain the business. From the playing side,
Right.
you need players, and there seems to be a lot more players out there that are willing to play, but how are the players getting treated?
Mhm.
What are contracts like? Stuff like
Right.
that. I mean, when I got into it, they said, "Hey, you got to be part of the union. You had to be part of the old union that we had that was run out of the NFL players union office in Washington. You had the NFL behind you, then you
Right.
really
Right.
have something. Now what do the players
Yeah.
have behind them? So from a player standpoint, players need to be they need to be taken care of. Because if you don't have the players, you don't have, it's what comes
Absolutely.
first, the horse or the cart. If you don't have players, you don't have a game. You don't have a game if
Mhm.
you don't have ownership. So I think there's definitely some room for improvement and expansion, and do things a little different on both sides, both on ownership and also on the player side.
Those have been over the years. Some of the problems, some of the owners have come in and not really been prepared for what they had going on. Or they didn't market the team to bring the people, the fans in, because I mean, it really is a turnstile game. So much, I mean, everything sort of bases on your concessions, and your turnstile, because there is no television contract that's out there paying you millions of dollars to the league to carry the broadcast. But it is, it's a positive look that like I was saying, that some of the franchises are bringing in, like you say. So I love your statement there. You're not succeeding if there's any seats. There's still more work to do. If they're not all full, there's still more work to do, and that's around the league right now. Michael, talk a little bit about, I want to rewind a little bit. Talk a little bit about some of the different players that you recall playing with when you were with the Milwaukee Wave, and how the chemistry on that team worked with you on it.
Yeah, well, like I said in the beginning, Victor Nogueira, I believe, was the best goalie of all time. That I played with him, in the old MISL, and then obviously with the other leagues over the years. He was revolutionary in the way goalkeepers play the game, and that's with the small goals, and then obviously with the expanded goals. So that's just my personal opinion, but there's a lot of people, I think, that also believe that he is right up there if he's not on the top. And obviously you need that. If you don't have someone good between the pipes, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle in this league, even though they've changed the rule where you can only play it back to the goalkeeper, one time until you get it over the halfway, or however the terminology for that rule is. But they are still a huge part of the indoor game. I was fortunate to play with a number of other top players in Milwaukee over the years. Michael Richardson comes to mind. Rusty Choi comes to mind. Stevie Morris, players that have played in the league a few years and stuck around and played. Peter Hatcher, a name that's been around outdoor soccer as well.
Yeah.
We even bought, Keith was one to go out. He brought in some veteran Brazilian players or Croatian players. So we over the years we had some good players. Keith also had the national futsal team. He was the head coach. So the Dosovsky twins, David Moxham, those guys played for the U.S. men's national futsal team. So there was some very high quality players that we had, and then the youngsters that came in. When you come in and you see that caliber of player on the field, you knew you had to bring it.
Right.
Every practices. You hear about teams saying, "Oh,
good point.
Practices are harder than the games." I can tell you, our Mondays and Tuesday practices were not for the faint of heart. They were. The guys used to have a good time after games at the weekend, but Monday and Tuesday practices, you better be ready to work hard. And sometimes it works the other way around. Sometimes, you rest a little bit, because you had 2 games at the weekend. Well, yeah, Keith wasn't he didn't read that too often. We knew that Mondays and Tuesdays were going to be tough. So, yeah, and then even when Victor left, we had Nick Vorberg was an established keeper. I think he played out in San Diego for a while, came out and we won a championship with him. So there's been a number of players that I wouldn't have got the amount of goals that I got if it wasn't for those guys. And it works both ways. They wouldn't have won championship if I hadn't scored as many goals as I did. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing a few old faces. And we also had some guys that ended up going and doing well on other teams. We had Joe Reiniger, for example, great player that spent some time in Milwaukee, would travel up from St. Louis and went back to St. Louis and won championships there. So, Keith was always looking. And that's really what put us over the edge, was picking up 1 or 2 players during the trade window, that would get you over the line at the end of the season. And looking now, Milwaukee just made a big trade this past weekend. So maybe that's the piece that's going to put them on track and it's going to push them over the line or compete for another championship. So,
I just saw Milwaukee here in San Diego on Sunday night, and they're playing tonight up in Ontario against the Empire Strikers. You mentioned the trade that they just made. I was halfway hoping that Frank Tayu would make the trip to the West Coast and play, and jump right on there. He wasn't in San Diego. I understand that he's probably not going to take the field until maybe Sunday. For the alumni game, might be his first game in the Wave uniform. The only time I've been to see the only time I've seen the Wave personally in Milwaukee was at Panther Arena for the championship game a few years ago against I think it was Monterey Flash that came to town for the finals. That was a pretty good crowd. It was a great experience and a great crowd.
Milwaukee's you give them a little bit of time to sell, and fans come out the woodwork. We've got a few old established clubs, ethnic clubs in the Milwaukee area, and so we have a good soccer fan base. And I think if you looked and saw what happened with the Bucks the Milwaukee Bucks when they won their championship downtown next to the stadium in the Deer District, they put 30 to 50,000 people outside the night they won the championship. So if you put a good product on the field and there's talk of championship, you're going to probably fill the seats for the championship series, and that's indicative of a sports town. They may not be
Right.
come in every game, but there's enough to support a team that has success, and that's one of the reasons why I stuck around here afterwards. The fan base was very supportive of myself and my family, and was able to, make a go of staying here after I got done playing.
So speaking about after you got done playing, what are you doing these days?
Well, I got two things going on. I coach full time for a club called the Milwaukee Kickers. They've been in existence around 60 years. We have a big complex on the north side of Milwaukee. For the people that are listening, they may remember the Milwaukee Rampage. They used to play out of our facility back in the day. They won a couple of A-League championships. Bob Gansler was the coach, so you all know about Bob Gansler, coaching the U.S. national team. So he's from Milwaukee. There's been a few players. Jimmy Banks, first player of color really to play for the national team in the World Cup for the U.S. He's from here. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago, but his children still keep his legacy going here in Milwaukee. So I've been working for them the last 18 years, this club. I coach youth soccer. And I also work for a company called Go Play Sports Travel. That we do international sports trips to various countries in Europe and South America. Most of our business is soccer, but we do other sports. And so that gives me an opportunity to travel back to England and Europe to visit family and take teams over there. So nice. I'm pretty busy. It's mostly around soccer, and then obviously spending time going and watching and supporting the Wave play. So I'm a lifer. I'm a soccer guy.
No doubt about that. So that the logo on your sweatshirt, the shirt you're wearing, that's the travel company.
Yep, Go Play Sports Tours. Yep, we customize trips for youth clubs, various sports, but like I said, mostly soccer. We also do golf trips. So if anyone's out there that wants to do an international golf trip, we can customize something for them. So it's been good since COVID. It's been really good since COVID, because the travel industry was somewhat subdued for a couple of years, but we've come back really strong, and in fact, I'm taking 100 people from our Kickers Club to England at the end of March.
Wow.
So looking forward to that.
Outstanding. Michael King, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Once again, I'd like to just do a shout out to your guys' home game on Sunday, March 2nd, with the Milwaukee Wave coming out with the alumni celebration of you guys from the past. Thanks for joining me today, Michael.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad to have the opportunity to get on your platform and appreciate what you're doing to continually promote the indoor game.
Yeah, friend, I appreciate it. It's a labor of love, and I appreciate all of you guys that, as you used the term earlier, pioneers, that kept this thing going during those great years back when you were playing. And thank you for your contribution to the game continuing on. And love to having you on today. I appreciate talking with you, man.
Yeah, any time. I'd love to come back on, down the road, and maybe if Milwaukee's fortunate enough to get to the championship, maybe you can come out here if they're going to.
That sounds great.
Yeah, because isn't this year they're doing something different with the playoffs, championship series? So
well, the championship series is going to be a home and home series. So if you make it to the championship, otherwise all the playoffs are going to be in San Diego, which is kind of controversial. I mean, I get why they're doing it. I just don't. I mean, I think that every playoff team should have an opportunity to host a home game, but I understand why they're putting everything in San Diego. But make it to the finals, and game would definitely be in Milwaukee. Thanks again for joining me, Michael.
If it's here, book a ticket, and I'll show you a good time in Milwaukee.
Yeah, there you go. All right, buddy. Thank you, man. Appreciate
All
it.
right, thanks for having me.